We obviously live in a bizarre world. The idea that these infrastructure failures were not attacks is now a moot point. The very idea of neglecting infrastructure that comes in contact or in the vicinity of citizens and could compromise the health thereof should be a crime. Because corporate entities want to be considered persons and have all the protections that are afforded to the status, we should universalize that idea. A person is not allowed to neglect something that comes in contact with other persons that may damage that person without the penalty of litigation and, depending on the severity, criminal prosecution. Curious to see the statistics on infrastructure failure in the United States, I learned a few things. The statistics on infrastructure failure in the United States varies depending on the type of infrastructure and the time frame being considered. Here are some examples of infrastructure statistics in the United States. Dams, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. In a 2021 report card, there are over 91,000 dams in the United States with an average age of 56 years. The ASCE gave the nation's dams a grade of D on the report card, citing concerns about aging infrastructure, lack of funding for maintenance and upgrades, and increasing risk from extreme weather events. Bridges. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's bridges a grade of C in 2021. The Federal Highway Administration reports that there are over 617,000 bridges in the United States, and 42% of them are at least 50 years old. There are 220,000 bridges rated as structurally deficient. This means that they are in need of significant repairs or replacement. Drinking water. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's drinking water infrastructure a grade of C- in its 2021 infrastructure report. The EPA reports that there are an estimated 240,000 water main breaks in the U.S. per year, according to the EPA Protection Agency. There were over 6 million lead service lines in the United States as of 2018, which can pose a serious health risk if not addressed. Wastewater. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's wastewater infrastructure a grade of D+ in its 2021 infrastructure report. The Environmental Protection Agency reports that there are an estimated 23,000 to 75,000 sanitary overflows per year in the United States. Public transit. The ASCE 2020 report card gave the nation's public transit infrastructure a grade of D-, citing concerns about aging systems, underfunding, and increasing demand. The report noted that these transit agencies are struggling to maintain existing infrastructure, let alone expand and modernize it. The United States has an extensive railroad infrastructure that spans across the country. The railroad system is a vital component of transportation network in the United States, and it plays a critical role in the movement of people and goods across the country. The railroad system in the United States is owned and operated by a variety of private companies, including Union Pacific, BNSF Railway, Norfolk Southern, CSX, and Canadian Pacific. These companies own and maintain thousands of miles of tracks which are used to transport a wide range of goods, including coal, oil, grain, and other raw materials. The U.S. railroad infrastructure includes a mix of mainline tracks, branch lines that connect smaller cities and towns to the larger network. There are also intermodal facilities where cargo can be transferred between rail and other modes of transportation, such as trucks and ships. The federal government also plays a role in supporting the railroad infrastructure in the United States. The Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, is responsible for regulating the safety of the railroad system and administering funding programs for infrastructure improvements. However, like other infrastructure systems in the United States, the railroad system is aging and in need of significant investment to maintain and modernize it. In recent years, there's been a growing interest in investing in rail infrastructure to support economic growth, reduce carbon emissions, and improve transportation efficiency. Overall, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's infrastructure a grade of C- in its 2021 infrastructure report card. The report estimates that the U.S. needs to invest $2.59 trillion over the next 10 years to bring its infrastructure up to a good condition. Why are infrastructure projects so lean and politicians so reluctant to unify and pass effective legislation? Are corrupt policies, politicians, and political systems to blame? One reason infrastructure projects may be lean is due to funding constraints. Infrastructure projects can be very expensive, and governments may not have the resources to fully fund all the projects that they would need to undertake. Additionally, there may be competing priorities for funding, such as education or healthcare, that limit the available resources for infrastructure. Another reason for the reluctance of politicians to unify and pass effective legislation may be due to political polarization and the tendency for politicians to prioritize their own interests or the interests of their constituents over the broader interests of the country. Additionally, passing effective legislation can be a complex and time-consuming process that involves negotiating and compromising with other politicians, which can be challenging and may require giving up some of their own priorities or policy goals. While corrupt politicians, corrupt policies, and a corrupted political system can certainly contribute to the challenges, it is important to recognize that there are often many factors at play when it comes to infrastructure legislation. Addressing these issues will require a multifaceted approach that involves addressing funding constraints, improving political processes and systems, and addressing the root causes of corruption and political polarization. A forgotten part of history is when engineers were the majority of people who ran companies and had a functional knowledge of the systems that they developed. Never heard the transportation because they weren't opening their mouths about things. They were working to improve all transportation safety, and most came from a true transportation background. Either the United States Department of Transportation, FAA, not a mayor from a small town which passed less potholes than Domino's Pizza. Did all the trains derail directly over a natural cobalt deposit like the one under that city so that they can contaminate the soil, then shutter the city, run off all the people, declare eminent domain, ban Americans from the region, and hand it over to the Chinese to mine using illegal workers? Or is it something as simple as stock buybacks? I have my own speculation why everything is slowly being cannibalized, because we have a system of exponential growth is absolutely necessary for publicly traded companies who have boards of directors and people that they have to adhere to. Therefore, during 2020, obviously, many profits were lost and revenues were hit. However, I think in order to offset the loss of profits, companies are still willing to engage in practices which used to be deemed illegal, stock buybacks, speculative finance, and now are cannibalizing the very systems and are now cannibalizing the systems which once allowed them to generate such generous profits. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share to a friend. Thank you.